All right. Well, Kevin, back with you for another episode. And today I am here with Ryan Nickel. And Ryan, you and I were talking right before we hit the record button. And I'm like, I'm trying to remember, where did we originally meet? And you reminded me that it was through Laurel Langmeyer, and you were her affiliate manager from what year to what year? You were
2012 to 2014.
And I was just, when you shared that with me, I was like, my gosh, time flies, because it doesn't seem like that long ago that you and I were working together and stuff, and that you were my contact person at Laurel's company. And like, that was back in the days when I was doing like hundreds of strategic partnership projects and stuff. And you were my contact person there. So you and I were the one that like communicated on all this stuff to make things move forward. And Laurel is like, I remember I was sharing with you before we recorded stuff, we had such good results working with Laurel that she decided, you know what, we're going to bump this up and do more, because she agreed, like, we're doing really good here. And Kevin, my folks love you, and let's do more stuff together. And that's all to, just kind of reiterate what we're talking about here is the importance of relationships. And I am just really excited to do this interview with you today, Ryan. And so thank you for taking the time to do this, man. I really
My pleasure, Kevin. Thank you.
Absolutely. So why don't we just start with, letting people know a little bit about who Ryan is. Who is Ryan Nickel? What do you do? What motivates you to do what you do? Who do you serve? All of that kind of stuff. And we'll just start there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So I'm married, have 5 kids, 5 beautiful, healthy kids. Thank goodness. Doesn't come without, its accidents. So I have, 5. They're 12, 10, 8, 6, and 3.5. And our 6-year-old last night on the trampoline I think he's going to lose his 2 front teeth. So life's always busy. But this is what I do. Like, I'm a father. Like, this is who I am. And I invest in real estate, and it gives me a passive income lifestyle. I have several properties that bring in money monthly for us, so that allows us to go into travel. For example, next week we're going to take a week off and go to Disneyland. Nice. And it'll be our 4-year-old's first time there, and she is just bouncing off the walls, like telling everyone that comes to the house, the Amazon guy, the mailman, everyone's like, we're going to Disneyland. And so it's like a lot of fun in our household. And but yeah, when I left Laurel, I got into real estate, and this is what has allowed for me to do that. It wasn't always easy. And so kind of who I serve really are the fathers that wanted to have a better life. Like, because that was what I wanted. I wanted to be a father that was there for my kids. Growing up, my dad worked his butt off. He was a prison guard. And in order to afford the things that we wanted, as life got crazy, because he was the only one working, because my mom took care of us, he had to work overtime. So a lot of the time my dad wasn't there growing up.
Okay. And
I vowed that if I ever had the opportunity to work for myself, that I would have the time and the flexibility to do the things that mattered most to me. And that was being a dad. Because I love my dad, and I love spending time with him now later in life that he's retired. But growing up, I felt like I was missing out on opportunities because my dad wasn't there to support me. Like when I looked at my other friends, their dads were there. And so the big picture of what I do is so that I can be a father. Yeah. First and foremost.
Yeah, that is awesome. And being a dad myself with 7 kids and now 6 grandkids, I can totally relate, Ryan. It's
what a beautiful life.
Oh, you're not kidding. And we've been to Disneyland, and I know how much my kids enjoy that. And it's just, you guys are going to have a blast next week. That is awesome.
I appreciate that. So the younger kids, they know they've been there every single year, but then things shut down, and we're like, oh, we haven't been there since the youngest one will remember. It's funny too, because whenever I tell someone, you have 7, so that's, you're 2 up on me, but whenever I tell someone I got 5 kids, they're like, oh man, you must have your hands full. Your house must be full. I always remind them, I'm like, yes, my hands and my house are full, but I also have a full heart too.
Yeah. It is. I mean, I would not trade being a dad and being a grandpa now for anything. I absolutely love it, and it has been one of the most rewarding and fulfilling experiences of my life. And that is awesome. So how long have you been doing what you do, right? Because when I originally met you, you were working with Laurel. You were not doing what you do now. So when did you start getting into real estate and doing what you do now?
So it was August of 2020 when I
Okay.
started doing it. And I didn't have my first like quote unquote success. Like I actually like closed my first transaction was December 19th of, I said August 2020, sorry, 2014.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
August of 2014. And then it was it was December 19th of 2020, of 2014 when I got my first transaction like closed under my belt. So like 4 months of just struggle
Uh-huh.
trying to see if I could make this thing work. And looking back, I realized that a lot of the struggle was more mental than it was physical.
Sure.
It
Yeah.
was self-doubt, like, can I really do this? And
Uh-huh.
it got to the point where I had to end up leaving my wife and kids. We were in South Lake Tahoe and driving all the way to Savannah, Georgia, sleeping in the back of a guy's office, like his closet, thinking that the only way I can do this is if I can attach myself to someone who knows what they're doing, is better than me, all these other things, rather than trying to just dig in and see if I can handle it in my own backyard. And that was the biggest shift for me, was realizing that later on in life that I had all the tools and resources inside myself. I just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And I think everyone goes through that evolution. But so I started to answer your question 2015, and here we are 2021 and or 2014. Sorry, so 7 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, as you're sharing that, right, I'm like, oh yeah, I can totally relate to that. I have been guilty of telling myself some terrible BS, And so, totally guilty of that. And so,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, that is really awesome. And I know we're going to get to hear a little bit more about your background. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of shift gears here a little bit, and I'm going to reiterate the question for everybody listening. But have you ever been introduced to a person that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not even be possible if not for this person? And I am really excited to hear your story and your experience around this, Ryan.
Yeah. So I used to always tell people that was Chet Holmes.
Okay.
And, even when you email me, here's a question I'm going to ask you, like, Chet Holmes, hands down, Chet Holmes. I mean, that guy changed my life. I was in the mortgage industry, got his book, met him in person, got his training course, got his coaching, got everything. And then I sat there, I'm like, he's been replaced. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So you're going to be the first person I'm actually going to tell this to.
Wow.
So the one person who's changed my life, hands down, without a doubt, is Garrett J. White.
Okay. All right.
So, which is interesting because just what we were talking about, like my own personal experience of like, oh, these lies I've been telling myself. The very first time I met Garrett White, is this PG? Are you going for explicit filters on this or not?
No, whatever you feel comfortable talking about, you just communicate.
All right, well, I'm just going to, because Garrett. I mean, so.
Yes, I do know Garrett.
So I met Garrett at ClickFunnels Live, and it was 2015. Okay. He gets up on stage, and the very first words out of his mouth were, "Stop fucking lying." And then he's quiet, and he repeats it again. He's like, "Stop fucking lying." And I just sat there, and I was like, holy shit, he's talking to me. I'm the biggest liar. And he wasn't talking about lying to other people, which at the time I was. I was lying to my wife about all kinds of shit in my life. I was like, I was avoiding like the conversations of like, hey, hey, I'm looking at porn on the weekends and all this stuff. And, oh, hey, I'm not working. I'm not paying the bills. We're on food stamps and I'm trying my best to get us out of this situation. Like, it was really tough financially for us. He was talking about lying to myself. So I'm thinking like, oh, external lies. He's like, no, you're lying to yourself. You say you're going to do this and you never do it. You promise yourself and then you beat your ass up because you don't do it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, he just struck right to like the core of who I was. And I'm like, whatever he's going to do, I'm going to do it. And then I found out the price tag and I'm like, I'm broke. I can't do this. And I cried. I wept. Like, I literally went and talked to him afterwards and wept. He's like, cool, man. I love you no matter what. Just come back when you're ready. And they had an opportunity, and it was 2016. And they let guys in that weren't quote unquote qualified for the full weeks of event. It was just like an abbreviated version of it. It was called Warrior X. Gave my money. And I called my wife first. I said, honey, I have to do this. I absolutely have to do this. And she's like, well, if you think it's something you have to do, then you better do it. So I called him back, gave my credit card, and then just broke down in my car and just started crying. And I realized that there was going to be a massive shift that was going to happen for me. And it did. And like, I don't know how to explain it other than like, it was a rebirth of who I was. So after meeting him, it changed my life across all categories. So he categorizes life into like 4 different areas: your body, your balance, which is your relationships with your wife and kids, your being, your relationship with God, and then of course your business. And I wanted it more for the business aspect of it. I was like, I don't care about the body or my family. We're good and all this stuff. And then I go there and I realize, again, all the lies I've been telling myself, like, oh, my body's good. I'm like, no, I'm not good. I was really overweight, you know. Oh, my family is fantastic. No, I'm looking at porn. I'm like sedating on the side. You know, I don't date my kids, or I'm not, you know, fully present with my kids. And all these problems that I was like willing to just ignore and hide. Oh, my relationship with God is fantastic. And so I get there and I'm like, no, it's not. I'm lying about everything. How can my relationship with God be anything better, you know? And so as I got to like exposed to the truth of who I really was, or wasn't in this case, it really changed how I looked and saw myself. And the beautiful thing about it was there was no judgment. It was like, great, now you know the facts. Now you know exactly where you're at. Build the life that you want on top of it. But at least you have a strong foundation of truth rather than lies. Yeah. And that's what changed it for me. And literally, I went from 18 months of, so this is 2016. So I left Laurel, struggled, really, really struggled. So 2 years of struggling with food stamps and just self-worth issues and just like, oh, I can't provide for my family. I was just feeling like a lot of, you know, just self-deprecation. And in 18 months, I went from financially destitute, not dating my wife, not, you know, being connected to source, and not, you know, being connected with my kids, to financially independent, literally more cash flow coming in than we were expending every single month. So I was financially free in 18 months.
Wow.
Totally changed and revolutionized my life. And I've been able to get back, been able to have a connection with my kids. I date them monthly. My wife and I go on date night every single week. We do not miss that. And we have a family activity every single week as well. So we're all together doing something. And I realized, shit, I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do as far as be a dad. Yeah. And if it wasn't for Garrett and the kick in the ass that I needed to see the lies that I was really hiding behind, I don't think that I'd be able to have the success that I have today.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, wow, that is really cool, because I am friends with Garrett, and I met him probably right around the same time you did. He spoke at one of Yannick Silver's underground events. Back when he was very polarizing from stage. Either people totally loved his message and what he stood for, or they were just like, dang, I mean, they were getting up and leaving because like, I can't stand this guy, you know. Yep. And of course I was one of those guys that totally loved him. And he was so dang animated, and maybe his pants were a little tight, but he totally ripped his pants right in the butt crack up that whole dang scene, you know, on stage. Oh, no way. And it didn't faze him, not one damn bit, man. So, but you know, he and I went up after he spoke at that event and started talking with him at the stage there and stuff. And we just made a connection. We've been friends ever since. I was in strategic coach with him for a period of time. And we have a lot of mutual friends. My friend, Jesse Elder and him have done some work together as well and stuff. And so you kind of, you know, go to Garrett's thing, you realize, holy cow, I've been lying to myself. I've been lying to my family, to my wife, to my kids, in all these different areas of my life. And you turned all of that around once you started just being truthful with yourself. And so kind of paint a picture, because you paint a picture in over 18 months, you know, you kind of turned this whole thing around. But now we're several years later at the time you and I are having this conversation. What else has happened in your life, in your business, as a result of that interaction with Garrett? I mean, and we might not be talking about money or revenue, but like, I mean, maybe it is partly that, but it's like, what else has happened in your life and in your business?
So let me actually, you know, answer that for you. So 2016 to 2018, I was with Garrett and Wake Up Warrior. And then I'm like, I'm done with this. I'm out. So I bounced. I'm like, you know, I can do this on my own. I'm cool. Funny story, man. So I did that, and I maintained, I literally like struggled to keep my head above water to maintain the growth that I had. And so I reached out to him earlier this year. I'm like, hey man, this is this is crazy. This is ludicrous. In 18 months, I jumped up. And then for the last 3 years, I've just been plateaued. And he's like, well, come on back. So I did. So I came back in March, and I since then have had my best year yet so far. So last year's numbers, I've already trumped those in the short time that I've been back with Warrior. So I'm like, there's something about this. So, so yeah, his relationship and with me has it's, I don't know, it's like rocket fuel, because I'm able to tap into a deeper perspective of who I am as an individual. Has nothing to do with business. It's just when I'm more truthful and authentic about me and why I'm here on earth, it's like, okay, when I tap into this, it's like all of a sudden things just click, and it's not a struggle anymore. Whereas before I was like struggling to maintain what I had achieved, instead of having to just be like an easy, just next, quantum leap step.
Yeah.
So that's what's really what's happening. And that recently has happened since March of this year.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. And that's what I mean. And sometimes, I mean, I have struggled with that of, not wanting to let people see the real me, because, if they know who I really was, they probably wouldn't want nothing to do with me, or putting people on a pedestal like, oh, they have this really successful business, and like, I've never ran a business the size of theirs, so what value could I possibly have to offer somebody like that, or whatever BS we tell ourselves.
Right.
But yet, when we just show up as us, with the intention to contribute, to help, to serve others, and we just show up complete with all of our faults and everything, because you know what? We are absolutely brilliant at certain things, which is a small amount of things. And there's all this other stuff that we just are completely clueless to. We don't even know what we don't know. But when we just focus on like helping others, and when we show up that way, we just kind of go into this flow, because we just enjoy contributing and giving. And when people see us that way, that's when they really connect with us. That's when they're like, man, Kev, Ryan, I really like what you were sharing with so-and-so, but you know what? Can you and I have a conversation? I think you might be able to help me, or I know somebody else I want to connect you with, or whatever. And once I realized, it's like, you know what? It's okay to just leave pride and ego at the door and just be me. Here's who I am, complete with my faults and everything. And
not even really faults, because that's what, those idiosyncrasies is what makes you unique, uniquely you.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, because like, I can never be you. I could never be Garrett. I could never be anybody else. Just like you couldn't be me, he couldn't be me. Yeah. I'm the best me that I possibly could be. I'm perfect at me.
Yeah.
And when I embrace that perfectness, I'm like, hell, man, I've shown up. Here I am.
That's right.
It's when I try to pretend to be somebody else that things start falling apart.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ryan, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. For anybody listening to this, it's like, man, I really like that Ryan guy. I like what he stands for. I'd like to learn a little bit more about him. How can anybody connect with you or find out more about what you got going?
If they're interested, I'm on Facebook under Ryan S. Nickel. I'm right there. If they're in real estate, you can look me up. I have a YouTube channel called bootstraprei.com, and great opportunity there. But anything else, like I said, I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I'm just a normal guy like anybody else.
Yep. Same. Well, Ryan, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. I really appreciate it, my friend.
That's my pleasure, Kev.